Hey kids, it's JJ again. I just have kind of an informal, well, all my stuff's informal. Just a quick overview. This is probably more for people getting into the hobby than people that have been in it for a while. I just wanted to compare why you might want to, say, go a full-size quad, or 250 class. This is a 215, whatever. But this is what we call mini quads, which I really wish they just call them standards, because anything above a 180 and below 300 is pretty much a standard quad. But these are called mini quads. And obviously then you've got your micro brushless quads. And then you've got micro brushed quads. This is a Spectre frame with a omnibus F3 brushed controller in there with Racer Star, blah, blah, blah. This is a store-bought frame, obviously, that I really like these. But there's your three devils. And then there's drones, obviously, but that's a whole other topic. But if you're just getting into quads, what are the pros and cons of all of them? I started off building drones, 250 class, 350, 450, 550. 550 meaning from motor axle to motor axle. That's your dimensions of width there. I started off with drones, so I don't know if it really counts. I probably just didn't know any better, but there's pros and cons to using all of them. Let's start with the little guy, brushed quad. These are great because you can fly them in the house without killing the cat, or if you want to sharpen the blades, you can kill the cat. That's always fun too. Pussy hunters. This one in particular is FPV, and I'm not saying you have to use one of these necessarily, but if you're looking at, okay, do I get brushed, do I get non-brushed, whatever, the benefit is you can build this guy for all in 50 bucks without your transmitter. But that's with I got a 25 milliwatt FPV transmitter in here. I got my receiver in here, flight control board, which is omnibus, flying beta flight, my pretty decent motors for brushed, the whole 9 yards, beeper and all, for about 50 bucks. Runs off of 1S batteries. Usually, hang on a second, little cheap ass, these things are a couple bucks a pop, and you plug it in here. I have mine all fancy. Stick it on the bottom, bam, you're done. So it's a very cheap way and a good way to get into the hobby. These things are fun as hell. I went backwards in the hobby. I started with drones, went to full-size quads, then went into these, then went into micro brushless. And I've been at it for a few years now, obviously. So that is a great benefit to these. These are great in the yard. If you do destroy one, you don't cry about it, because it's 45 bucks, 50 bucks, whatever you spend on it. And you can probably make them even cheaper, because I think this race of drone is becoming obsolete. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So yeah, if you have one fly away or get run over by a car or something like that, it doesn't break the bank. You can fly it in the house without damaging too much stuff. The drawback is they have little to no punch. I mean, if you're running a 2S version, they have a little bit more. But I mean, you're not going to fly. I can fly acro with these, but they don't have the response of flips and recoveries. I don't know if I would go this route. The other drawback to these is you will burn up motors. Brush motors wear out. 40 flights, 50 flights, if you fly like I do, 30, and you're probably replacing motors. They get a little sketchy. You have to break in the motors. There's a couple little nuances to it. Great cheap way to get in the hobby, though, to see if you really like it. And I've turned a lot of people onto the hobby, my neighbors and whatnot, by just flying these little guys. They're really, really fun. Best pro is they're cheap, they're portable. You can fly them in your hotel room, you can fly them at the neighbors, whatever. You're not going to hurt anybody, and they're cheap. The biggest con is they wear out pretty quick, and they get a little lackluster after a while, because you're not doing a lot of extreme acrobatics or anything like that. But they are really fun. Next up, these are the two biggest deals out right now. These are kind of fading away because micro brushless are so cheap to build and make now. That I think they're just going to take over. I think this is a lost dog, a lost art. You're not going to see these a whole lot anymore. These are just my personal preferences. I love quads, as you know, and I've got 27 of them, something like that, including 4 or 5 drones. And absolutely love these things. But a lot of the time when I fly, it's because I'm traveling for work. You know, I'm going to a hotel or I'm coming home from a long drive or something like that. The nice thing about these are identical machines. Realistically, I can fly this one just like I can fly this one. It has the same firmware, the same flight controller, same OSD, same, well, not same camera, but, you know, pretty close. Fun as shit. I mean, they just really are. The biggest benefit for me with a brushless is the cost of ownership is cheaper. I can build a Flying 100, my version, for about $100, $110. To build something like this, a fancy one, you know, you got really good motors on them, really good flight controller, really good ESCs. You're looking at anywhere from $200 to $500, depending on which road you want to go down. And when these crash, you cry a little bit harder. These are better because, again, you can build them really cheap. You can maintain them cheap. The props are stupid cheap. And they don't have as much inertia. So when you crash into something, they tend to bounce off. However, I have broken some frames. I've broken the awesome Q95. I've broken the Aurora 100. What else have I broken? I've broken the Fly Egg. This one's broken. But I'm also an idiot, and I fly over cement and asphalt and all that good stuff. But the inertia is great. I've had these things drop in the grass from 100 feet up in the air and just bounce and not even break a prop. Not saying it's always going to happen, but it's really, really good. The other huge advantage for me is I can fly these inconspicuously. So if I just want to stop at a rest stop and go out back where they have all the trees and the picnic tables and just fly around for 10 minutes to air out from being in the car too long, I can do that. I'm not going to kill anybody with it, but I get the same experience as flying this guy, just about. They're fast as hell. They're powerful. They do anything you want. That's the biggest thing for me. I can fly this around the subdivision, and if it crashes, I'm probably not going to kill anybody or even hurt anybody. That is a low-ass plane right there. Anyhow, sorry. So yeah, the downfall to these, you better be good at soldering, okay? If you're making them yourself, and they don't love wind. You know, you're not flying it in a 20-mile-an-hour wind. I've flown these things in 25-mile-an-hour winds, and it's a challenge, but you can do it. These, yeah, I think the highest I've done that I know of is like 15 mile an hour, and even that's really scary. These take much cheaper batteries. This is a 3S60C. Flies great on one of these things. These are like, what, $8 a piece, something like that. Really, really cheap. I can't say enough good things. I love the micro scene. I've gotten into that lately, and I've built 9 of them, something like that, in the last month or two. Absolutely love these things. And everything's cheaper. The cameras, the VTX system's cheaper. The boards are cheaper. The ESCs are cheaper. The motors are cheaper. There's a little bit more of a science to it. I found out that, you know, you can overprop them easily and burn up a motor if you're running 1103s and things like that. But when you can build something this freaking awesome for $100, life is good. I'm sorry. I don't care who you are. That's just badass. Those are the benefits to these. I think if you're going to start out in the hobby, buy a pre-built one of these possibly, or even start off with this route. See if you like it first. I can't imagine you wouldn't like this, but anyway, these are great. You can fly them anywhere. They're fun. They're cheap. They're light. The batteries are cheaper. Everything's great, and you're probably not going to piss anybody off with it. They're so fast you can't even see the damn things in the air. So it's not nearly as intimidating as one of these dudes flying over your head. But again, finding them when you crash can be tricky. Always record your DVR. Always have a beeper. Always, 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 always. That's why I suffer the extra weight. This one's a little big. But whenever I build these things, I put on a little bit of that Sherlock tape. As you can see, there's one of my Flying 130, and a strap. Yeah, it's a little bit more weight, but nothing is worse than building a badass little quad, flying it out near the swamp somewhere, damn thing goes down, your battery has popped off and disconnected, and now you have no beeper. That sucks ass. You don't want that, because these things are like trying to find a needle in a stack of needles, and it's very, very difficult to do. That's why I take the extra 2 grams for the safety. I'd rather have a couple seconds shorter on my battery flight than not find my quad at all. So that's something I do. As for the big uns are fun because they're bigger. Bigger is better unless it's disease, debt, or ass. That's my saying. So they sound cool. They're fun. They do react differently. I mean, flying one of these and flying one of these is a different thing. But if you're used to this and you jump on one of these, it's pretty much the same thing. If you're just starting out, you're not going to notice a difference anyway. Cost of ownership on these guys is obviously greater. Takes a little bit longer to build a full size. I can build this quad in 1 hour and 15 minutes if I take my time. I can build this quad in 45. But I've also built a zillion of these things, so take it with a grain of salt. These usually have a little bit better range, but although the VTXs for these are getting much better, so I'm running 200 milliwatt transmitters in most of my little ones, so if I want to suffer the battery, I can really go pretty far. These are more dangerous. I mean, they really are. These things are spinning 2,600 RPM per volt. So that's hauling ass. You know, you whack somebody with this thing, you're going to have a lawsuit on your hands. But they're easier to find. They sound cooler. They're easier to manipulate sometimes. But realistically, I think if you said I had to pick one or the other, I think I'd go micro, honestly. I mean, I love my big ones. Never going to stop. I love them. I'll build the big ones forever. But one of the things I told myself is I'm going to try not to build any more of these. I'm just going to upgrade the ones I have. I put better motors on things, better controllers, things like that, because I'm pretty happy with my frame selection of what I've got here in the garage. But these little guys, I don't mind building these. Like, I get bored and it's a rainy day. It's like, oh, let's see if I got some spare parts, and I build one and, you know, take my time and take an hour, build the damn thing, go fly it, and it's just a ball of fun. If I were to start out and give somebody advice, I'd say these guys. I mean, they're fast as hell. They handle the same. You learn exactly the same. And if nothing else, you learn faster on one of these because you can fly it in more places. You can fly it around the backyard. You see me when I do my flight tests. I'm always in front of my house, and, you know, I know it's boring, but I'm flying in the subdivision. I'm always going up and down the road and whatever else. I do not do that with these. You've never seen a flight video of a mini quad or a normal size quad in my neighborhood. At least I don't think you have. Drones, yes, because it's a little bit different. Drones aren't winging around quite as bad, but these things, yeah, I'll fly them down the street. I don't give a shit. You know, I hit my neighbor's mailbox and he was cracking up. I shattered my frame. So yeah, I think those are the pros and cons to all three of these. Batteries for these guys cost a lot more. They're a lot more dangerous in the sense of exploding, I suppose, if you're into that propaganda. I've never had one just explode on me, but props are more expensive. Everything's more expensive. The cost of ownership, like I said, is much cheaper for a little guy than it is for a big guy. They're more fun because it's a V8 versus a V4, you know, type of thing. But realistically, if you said, dude, you can only have one style of quad, I would go with these because I can fly them anywhere. I don't know if I'd fly them in the house. Mine are pretty souped up, but you could put prop guards on them and fly them in the house in the wintertime if you like. So yeah, I'm not dissing these. I absolutely love full-size quads, sexy, but yeah, it's hard to beat. The technology has gotten so good, so fast. I mean, like today, I got this in the mail. What is it? I don't even know. Oops, shit. 15 amp ESC. Look at that thing. Cheap as beans, too. I mean, it's nothing but a peanut. And it'll go completely flash with my, where'd that flight controller go? Anyway, I got that Omnibus F3. I got one left because I bought 3 of them. Yeah, right here. So you stack this guy on top of this guy. You got your own little tower, right? So yeah, I mean, it's so cheap. I mean, to buy a comparable ESC all-in-one, it's going to cost you 30, 40 bucks for one of these. This thing, I think, was, I don't even know what this was, 10 or 12 bucks. I mean, if you're on a budget and want the same effect and maybe some more freedom than you even have with a big guy, like when I want to get landmark videos and things like that, or fly around a courthouse to get the statue on top, which I'm planning on doing, you're doing it with this. You ain't flying this thing in the middle of town without pissing a whole lot of cops off. So that's just a basic overview of the 3 main types of quads, in case you're new to it. I am completely taken with these little guys. I love them. I mean, seriously, how can you not? Ooh, that's sexy. I don't care who you are. That thing's just, you know. This guy, honestly, is still probably my favorite. This little 80 millimeter jobby. Thing's got balls that clank, man. 7,500 kV motors running 3S, 200 milliwatt transmitter, omnibus F4 controller with a 15 amp ESC. I mean, shit. That thing's just crazy cool. So anyhow, that's it. Just my take on it. You know, everybody's got a take, and that's mine. So until next time, keep the shiny side up. Keep it in the air, too. And subscribe. Later, kids. Bye.